Go for it.
Hi, today I'd like to introduce Sarah and Lynn, who has over 25 years of experience in high tech in many areas. She is one of the most seasoned voices in cybersecurity, audit, and AI risk, and will guide us through what it truly takes to create a resilient, trustworthy, and compliant AI-enabled organization. So take it away, Sarah. I assume
Thank
you
you.
want a screen share?
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Carolyn. I really appreciate it. I did not prepare any slides today. I thought we could just talk about AI governance and AI assurance. Thank you.
Sure, we don't have to do slides.
Yeah, thank you for giving me that good introduction. I appreciate it. I consider myself a technologist first and a security expert second, and AI is certainly part of our world now. And it's certainly part of everyday conversation from every company that I go to, and I'm sure that you go to as well. And what I wanted to just go over when you guys feel comfortable is talk about how to provide assurance, use that assurance to sell to your customers a bit better, and then have that continued governance and maintenance of AI, just like you do any other application or new thing that you've inserted into the environment. And Carolyn, I'm old enough to remember when cloud was called rack, and we racked computers, and we didn't call them cloud because I guess they hadn't moved up in the air yet. But it's certainly the same technology, and it was new, and it was going to be the biggest and baddest. And
Just cut out there, Sarah.
that's exactly where we are right now. Is we're kind of in that same dichotomy of newness. Let me check my network, Carolyn. Hold on just a second.
No, I think it was my network.
Yeah,
So
you're good, Sarah.
Okay, great. So we're saying that we're still in that same dichotomy of newness that we were when the cloud appeared from the racks. And so everyone in most businesses I come across has deployed AI. They're considering AI and trying to figure out where to use it. And then when they use it, how are they going to ensure that it stays secure? Privacy data stays private and confidential, and that this is maintained over time, and that it doesn't cost more than it needs to. The promise from AI is efficiency, 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 return on investment, return on investment, return on investment. So let's see it. But those things are aside from, is it secure? Is it private? Is it confidential? Is it managed well? And is there a governance to it? Now, the majority of clients that we go into, not everyone, has deployed some form of AI, whether they know it or not, and they are using it, some like a Grammarly session, which has its benefits, and different AI components attached to different applications, and they're not really analyzing their own data. They're analyzing external data, internal data, Carolyn's data, Sarah's data, William's data, Margaret's data. We're analyzing everybody's data because we haven't refined and configured this thing or these things. And that's where, an AI assessment prior to AI assurance, prior to governance and maintenance comes into play.
well, it sounds like you have to do AI discovery too, because there are a lot of disparate people bringing stuff in and not clearing it with anyone.
For sure, if you are a shop that already follows something like ISO 27001 or NIST 853 or NIST 800-171 or you have a structure with a management system, an ISMS, or you have a security program, you likely have thought about inserting AI into the program or framework. And that's exactly right. You need to insert it, just like you used to have audits on your computers and your data centers, and here comes the cloud, and you got to insert that into your program. So you're likely to be in that spot. If you don't already participate in some type of framework, compliance, regulatory, something that is set up like a security program that has governance and maintenance to it, you likely have things that you don't know about. And that is the scary part, is having anything that you don't know about. It's almost like your home with its front door, back door, garage face, side door, and someone's left one of the doors open and you don't know it. It's the same as dropping a non-configured firewall in your environment. It's the same. And so we want to take hold of that AI, whether it is Copilot, Gemini, or something else, or an AI component of Salesforce or ServiceNow, or any of the applications that you use to run your business. We have to take hold of that AI and make sure not only does it follow the governance, and I'll talk about those controls just a little bit in a second. Does it follow the governance, and can it stay in governance while providing that information back to the CIO about its return on investment and its efficiency? The thing that people are really chasing, efficiency and ROI, while this is unchecked.
Yeah,
So,
well, I have a, do you want to leave this open for questions while we're doing it or have
oh,
a discussion
absolutely.
at the
Yep,
end?
sure.
Okay.
I can take it.
So, Sarah was saying she thought of it more of a, as a discussion. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll get to it. But I would like to complain about Microsoft and Microsoft Office and inserting Copilot everywhere I go and making me write a script to turn it off.
Right,
And
absolutely.
that stuff just sneaks in.
It's true. It is aggravating when it's not what you want to do, or you haven't chosen it, that it's defaulting to do that. But this, it is, unfortunately, it's no different from Apple giving you a new iOS and forcing you into it. And then your icons change, or now your speaker comes on every time you're doing text. It's no different than that. It is something that has to be managed because the manufacturer, the vendor, Microsoft, Apple, whoever the vendor is, wants you to use their feature, so they're going to turn it on as default. But I certainly align with you on that complaint myself. I don't care for the Copilot logo showing up on my Word document that I didn't ask for, or they, Copilot being the default, or Gemini being the default if you're on Gmail or GCC or the workspace, any of those being a default. I'd love to have the control to turn it on, not have to chase it and turn it off.
Mhm.
So I totally get that. But imagine if that's just the one, how many of them have turned on and you don't know about it? With all the other applications you use, I've noticed that every vendor that you do business with is saying AI ready. Use AI, move to AI now, and the question is, what are they doing with AI? And is it now in my environment? And the answer is probably yes. So let's say you use a GRC and in a previous life, you configured the GRC and you put your policies and procedures and your frameworks and your internal audits and everything in the GRC. Maybe even you have your ticketing system in the with the GRC. But now there's an AI agent in there collecting data. And if you don't configure it, is it collecting data from outside of your environment? Is it leaking data outside of your environment? What is happening to the confidentiality, the privacy of the data that you have inside of that application, whether it's ServiceNow or Salesforce or Jira or any of those tools that we probably all use?
So then if you're auditing AI, do you have to know all the features of all these programs and all of the ways to configure them?
Well, let me answer that in a yes no fashion. So, first off, going in at today, if you went in, you're going to know 10, 12 that they're using. But you're going to have to audit it just like maybe like you're a pen tester. You go in, you find a new thing, you don't know what it is, you look at the configuration, you have to look at the code, you see what it's doing. So you have to, in my mind, be a bit of a techie or understand the control to know where the data is coming from and be able to trace where it's coming from or going to. And if you can't go do one of those things, you need help. So then let's choose a framework. A framework like you could use the NIST 853 AI guidelines, or you could use the ISO 42001 guidelines framework that aligns with 27001 or 27701. Let's look at that. So you're going to join a program that already has its domains, its families, etc. But you're going to have some very specific things. You're going to have an AI management system. You're going to have owners for AI. You're going to need to do risk assessment, third-party independent reviews on AI, especially the critical apps, but you need to know where it all is. So you need to do discovery, as you said earlier. Maybe you need to do a test. Maybe you are looking at all the AI discovered, and then you're doing a configuration check on all the AI to find out where the data is coming from, where it's going to, what the AI is doing. You don't want it to make an analysis that is untrue or use data that you don't feel supports your business. So there's a lot there. So even if you just took the average mid-sized company has over 200 apps that possibly have AI running. You're assessing the critical apps. Maybe you assess 10. Well, what about the other 190? You're going to have to put them into a governance and a routine for third-party risk management so that you're looking at all of them at some point or other, and an alerting system. So maybe you connect them to the SIM. Maybe you have incident response, disaster recovery, business continuity. All these things apply to the AI that I don't think people are yet thinking about. If you rely on it and then it's not there, or the data changes dramatically, what's your response to that?
Great. Kathy Barrio has a question.
Cool. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, hi, Sarah. Nice to meet you. You know, this is something, and most of the witty people know this, that I am very attuned to this problem from a consumer aspect. And I did do some lookups on, how to turn things off that that a consumer would probably use.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting because some of these, like on Adobe, some Adobe products, you have to dig down 3 ways or three steps down. And so my idea has been to create a like a guide or a shortcut guide or something like that, but be able to keep it up as new things come on board. It'd be great. I would love to be able to take out um, Copilot from everywhere I am, and that's not something that, put it to you this way, your average person, like people in my family, do not know that their information is being collected for AI training. And they say, oh, I don't have anything to do with AI. I don't use it. But in fact,
You do.
they are. Yeah, they are. So so I'm trying to build I'm trying to build a business around that. So your conversation today is really helpful for me to test out some of the thoughts that I had about, not from a corporate side, making sure their data is safe, but at least letting people know that they are, give them the awareness that this is what they're doing, or if they should choose, turn it off. Um, so anyways, thank you for presenting today, because this has been really helpful for me and the projects that I want to work on.
Yeah, I think this is a step beyond the 20-year-old screen scraping, right? Things, it's there, people don't know it's there, or they deploy it to do one thing, a consumer or a business, but it's doing multiple things. And we want to make sure that we know what it's doing, how it's doing it, and is it delivering what we expected. Now, it's going to deliver results faster if configured properly than possibly myself and my spreadsheets. But can I utilize my old spreadsheets to make good data go forward and have some type of expectancy of what it sort of looks like? Probably should, so that I know that if it comes back radically different, something is wrong. So those are important things. And I think, I don't know how many of you watched the movie a few years ago, where the Teslas all went a little crazy at the end. The white Teslas went a little crazy at the end of the movie. And, there are bad guys out there that are going to program things. So security is super important. And that's why we created frameworks, governance, maintenance, third-party reviews, those types of things, just like every other aspect of business. And AI, the ISO 42001, and even the NIST guidance are telling us, put it in the framework, look at it on the same regularity you do every other application and every other thing you do in your business. Look at the configuration map, look at the incidents, look at incident response. If you don't have an incident response scenario set up for AI yet, you should. If you don't think that it could be disastrous if you rely on it and then it's gone, you should. What's the impact it'll have on your business if you rely on it, you don't have a backup plan of any sort, and it's gone? How much business will you lose in that moment where you're trying to now recapture something manually? And frameworks tell us to put these things in place so that those things are reduced in risk, severely reduced in risk. They're never out of reach. They're never ever gone, but they're just reduced tremendously in risk, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so Margaret Hartnett and Dan Wilson both have questions. Let's go with Margaret. She raised her hand first.
Hey, Margaret.
Hello, Sarah. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, you can't see me. Sorry, I've got the thing down on my camera.
Now we see you.
Yeah, great. Look, thank you very, very much. I really, really enjoyed what your discussion so far, and it's resonant with so many things that I would certainly see. But I would go a little bit further, because really I think what you've been focusing so far has been on, as you said, users or deployers of AI systems. Whereas I'm also interested in the developers of AI systems.
Sure.
And I think you'd be surprised and possible. Sure, I'll take down my hand. I think you'd probably be surprised and horrified to realize that the development of AI systems, it's not particularly well documented or regulated or controlled in any shape or form.
Yeah, I agree with you, Margaret. And I know you can't see my notebook here, but that's SDLC, the software development lifecycle of AI, and fitting that into your already existing framework, if you have it, is so important. We don't know what's being developed by, oh my gosh, when I go online every day, there's a new AI company or a new twist on AI in every single company, but we don't know how it was developed. We don't know if they developed with any type of compliance or regulation or even a program in mind, or, oh my gosh, this takes me back to the 90s in the dot-com era, where everyone was building everything super fast with no regulation around it or no compliance around it. And while it might be pretty and it might have nice marketing words with it, it's not yet either prime time or in a place I would want to put it in my environment just yet. I mean, I grew up in North Carolina. Carolyn, I know you're in North Carolina now. I grew up in North Carolina. That's where this accent came from. I live in California now, but this accent, North Carolina. We have Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, home of the Wright brothers. Whether you believe it or not, you're like whether First in Flight was Ohio or North Carolina. That's the whole political argument. But the Wright brothers took many trips before that plane really got off the ground and stayed in the air. And then, even then, there was just two guys on it. You know, so they were developing the airplane, developing how flight should happen for human beings. And it was probably years and years and years, long before I visited Orville and Wilbur at the Kitty Hawk Memorial, many years before it was prime time. And with AI, we are in a situation where it's fast, it's furious, and the question is, if it hasn't been someone audited it, looked at the configuration management, and a third party that's recognizable with assurance say, yes, this has been through the proper software development lifecycle with security and controls, I feel like we're not going to get off the ground with it too much for every single instance of AI. And if we do, then we end up with an airplane that doesn't fly well.
It's refreshing, though, to listen to you say these things, because in the backdrop, we're operating in an environment where increasingly it's becoming a zero-sum game, or at least being portrayed as this, that any attempt to govern AI is being portrayed as something which is going to suppress innovation. So you probably, or you may or may not have heard about, for instance, in Europe, the digital omnibus package that was just this week put forward by the European Commission, which would seek to delay the implementation of the coming into force of the AI Act, and indeed watering down some of the provisions in relation to high-risk AI systems. And it's being put forward partly in response to Mario Draghi's previous comments that Europe was less than innovative, and it was because of red tape, etc. I don't agree with that perspective. I find it objectionable that it's being portrayed that way, that as a consumer, we're not actually being given a say. It would be in any other context, if it was any other product, if somebody was to say, well, no, you know what, as a consumer, you don't have a right to have a safe product because, well, we've got to give these people every opportunity to produce the product as quickly as possible. It just wouldn't happen. What we're looking at is a potential delay, as I say, in relation to the implementation of the AI Act by anywhere upwards to 18 months or longer. And bearing in mind the speed at which these systems are developing and deployed, I mean, they're like mushrooms, they're popping up all over the garden place. In 18 months, I don't even want to think about where we're going to be. So it's so interesting to listen to somebody from a techie background like myself, who isn't averse to actually the concept that actually you do have to check how these systems are built and used.
Yeah, you do have to make sure that you know how they're built and used, and there's a layer of believing that innovation comes first before it being secure or being released in a proper way. And I understand that, but I always tell people, listen, would you drop off your family in the middle of nowhere because you got a free trip? Right? Or would you analyze it, make sure it was secure, make sure your family was going to be okay before you drop them off? And that might take a little bit, and you might lose the prize, but you might win in the end. And that's kind of how, innovation first gets us, because we're dropping off the family in the wilderness, not knowing what has occurred. And I believe in innovation. I get really upset when I look at something, I'm like, that is 20 years old. That is 30 years old. That is 50 years old. I really get upset with those things and know that there's better ways. And the reason is the same thing that happens with big pharma. The reason that your, supplement might be working better, but nobody knows about it, is because it's not making big money. And the thing that's making big money may or may not be the best. That's why analyzing it, assessing it, adding your controls, adding your assurance. I'm just one to take time on doing those things, putting those pieces in place. I don't know. Some people think I'm a turtle. I take a little extra time, but I tell clients 4 months to 4 years, depends on you. We have to go at the speed of your work family. Protect the IP, protect the client, protect the family. We can't drop it in and expect it to be safe or confidential or private, any of those things.
Dan Wilson has a question.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I'm right here with you as a colleague on this, and someone who works in cyber and AI and governance. And I preach about the AI RMF and 42001, and I've had a lot to do with changing policy in Malaysia with a lot of the working group efforts that I've participated in earlier this year. I wanted to say that it's bringing a lot of things to light into what people need to redefine due diligence and what matters in all of this. And a lot of people aren't used to having to take these extra steps. And like you said, innovation can happen with the right frameworks in place to start with. And my best example to this is like, oh, you guys want to go out and build a bunch of new futuristic homes, but if you're not adhering to the fundamentals of what a foundation is and how it should be laid, that's like trying to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of things that can be in place before we start innovating. And I develop AI solutions and tools and all these different things, and I do research and I innovate. But it's really easy to bake in the foundation of the risk management framework and 42001 into all the tooling that you use to create what you build next. And, if someone's building code with a code agent, you can put rules in there where it would adhere to proper guidelines and policies for whatever intents and purposes your app might cover, the scope of it, PII, GDPR, all the things out there. And even if you don't bake it into your production, you can do afterwards the same due diligence and recode what needs to be recoded. But we all know it. You'll do less work if you build right the first time. And so I applaud your perspectives and efforts on all of this. And it's, and also I agree, with the fact that like Europe, in Europe, they are leaders, but there has been a lot of red tape and a lot of, confusing things, depending on where you're at. But building right allows innovation to happen. And so it's just a matter of settling on what works. And thankfully, in the US, we have something that reflects the same tenets of the 42001, but you can't audit the RMF. You can't, it's just guidelines, and it's not really auditable. You can enforce it, but people should take to the tack to just do that and use the 42001 here in the States as well, because we're touching the whole world, because most companies are having clients and customers from all around, not just, their region. But anyway, I think it's an exciting time, and I am like you. I feel the same innovation bug to create and to keep. If you're going to be wild about it, keep it in a sandbox. And the playground is not inside the work building. It's not inside the office. Like, keep those two things separate. And when it's time to start making a case out of it and use cases and things, that's when it's time to really dig down into the proper fundamentals of risk management and also just a mitigation strategy. And I'll leave it with this. I create maturity indexes for companies based on where they're at. And it could be a really old company. It doesn't make them AI mature at all. It could be a new company. They could be very well matured in it. But it's not all about data maturity. It's just about, like, do you have the contingency plan? Do you know who's responsible for if something happens? Do you cultivate the culture of communication, where if someone does click on something bad, are they going to report it and report the leak, even though it's embarrassing? If they won't be admonished for it, people are more likely to admit when something goes sideways when they're responsible. But it's more than a cultural shift. It's like, hey, here's the tools to use and how to use them. And if people in the right places start using them, it's so easy. It's mindless almost to bake in the proper security and policies from the get-go. So anyway, I applaud your efforts and I appreciate your talk.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate you too. And on the thought, I have a couple thoughts on what you said too, just to add to what you said. We don't really have audits on the RMF yet, but we can do a mock audit or an attestation and help people, guide people towards it in case it becomes an auditable thing in the future. And they may decide to do ISO 42001, and then that does become certifiable and auditable and that sort of thing. I play like everything's auditable. Yeah, I have a spreadsheet on the refrigerator for Thanksgiving tomorrow. That's auditable. I'm going to make sure everybody completes the spreadsheet.
I love the way you think. Oh, goodness. This is great.
Yeah, true. And then I saw this thing on Facebook yesterday where kids were given this very literal statement. They didn't realize it was a literal statement to, let's see, draw a square with three lines, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't draw a square with 3 lines. And about 10 kids in, the young lady finally draws a square and then draws 3 lines, because the statement was draw a square with 3 lines. It wasn't draw a square using only 3 lines, which is what everybody heard. And if you deliver the wrong statements to an AI component, you'll get the wrong results. And I think that's the simplicity of it all, is we want to assure we are getting the right results. And for the business purposes, what's the return on investment and how efficient did I just become by drawing a square with 3 lines? I think that's important.
Isn't there room? Okay, Margaret, you have a question. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, it's a question comment. We're developing, because our interest is in developers or providers of AI systems rather than users. We're developing automated audit systems for the process by which AI is developed. or whatever. I must admit, firstly, the technology to do this on an automated scale has not been possible until, say, 3 months ago. My experiences of doing this for the purposes of, for other legal purposes, when I had to do it manually, was, it goes back to that idea where you were saying you should be able to audit it during the life cycle of an AI system. I would argue that with conventional manual-based methods, it will cost so much and take so much time, it's just not scalable. It will not be possible to do it repeatedly during a life cycle of an AI system. In fact, probably you'd be lucky if you'd be able to do it once, because just the sheer amount of work that's involved to look at every stage during, even just when you're just before deployment. If you start having to go through asking people, how did you pre-process your training data? How did you select, or how do you deal with outliers? How would you even recognize what an outlier is? All this kind of stuff. This is hardcore stuff. You'll find it's really, really hard to do manually. That's why we've had to start doing this and developing technologies to do it automatically based on the content of the documents that exist within the organization. Do I think it's possible to expect AI developers to change their existing behaviors? No, I don't think it is, at least not to the extent of expecting them to fill out loads of questionnaires. It's just not going to happen. But what you can do is look for evidence through Jira, Confluence, Notion, the sort of corpus of organizational knowledge, and extract evidence from that, which will give you metadata relating to how the system is developed. But I say we've been developing this system for about 2 years so far. The technology is underpinning it. But we're finding it, to be blunt, we're finding it really hard to get anybody to pilot with. Because when I talk about this in the context of the AI Act, for example, most of the people I meet are busy talking about the law. They're not talking about the practice. Mm-hmm. If you AI governance people, they're busily talking to me about the pillars and this other of, how to do an inventory to find out how much they're using AI to generate marketing materials. Whereas actually the stuff I'm really interested in is control systems, computer vision systems, biometric systems, etc., where you're going to know you have them in the business, but do you know how they work? Do you know how they were trained, how they were tested, how they're cross-validated? That's the really hardcore stuff. But I'd be interested to hear your view, because as I say, I can't even get people interested to even talk about this. I talk about it with lawyers and they're going, why would I need to audit an AI system? Why would I need to? They say to me, sure, I've got a model card. I'm going, a model card just tells you what somebody tells you the system is. It doesn't prove it. Proof is only as good as the evidence that it relies on. I'm a lawyer as well, and I'm all about the evidence. And I've been on the sharp and pointy end of way too many audits, tech audits myself over the years, where somebody comes in and says, show me the evidence. I'd really like to hear your views on this.
I have a question first to toss in with this.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have an SDLC written down to design against? I mean, I'm not aware of a good SDLC for AI systems that tells you what kinds of controls to put in, and even the opt-in, opt-out button.
I just want to step in and say, yeah, that's been pioneered right now, and I'm a part of one of those efforts. If you want to write this down, agnTcy.org. Go to agnTcy.org, and it'll address a lot of the things that we're talking about today in terms of industry leaders and people coming together to build that right now, because that's where everything's going. And then in terms of the SDLC that's geared for agentic and AI coded assisted, production, you're going to want to look at Blitzy. And these are just examples to know what these are some of the leaders in all this. And I'm bringing it up right now. So I make sure I have it's BLITZY .ai. And their AI-powered autonomous software development platform manages from start to finish a lot of what we're talking about. So that's basically what I wanted to say, that people are already on this. and it's groups and it's open to approach. So the Blitzy is a service, but it's a great example of everything we're talking about being done right from the start and integrated for long-term usage. So there you go.
Sounds to me like you're missing an S in the spelling. Can you spell it again for me?
AGNTCY.org. That's AGNTCY.org. Just like I spelled it.
That's not what I wrote down.
AGNTCY.org.
And then you said something about Delitzy.
BLITZY.ai. Blitzy. BLITZY.ai. They're a great example of the SDLC. It's agentic first with all the frameworks and policies needed for wherever your region is.
Great. Back to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I wanted to address what Marguerite is up against, and she's up against something that not everyone has thought about yet, but it is really important. The place where evidence, legal, compliance, regulatory bump up against automation is important. Anywhere you can automate to shorten the life cycle to evidence collection and proper evidence is important. That is and is not AI. AI is beyond that. You may or may not be able to use AI to analyze or collect anything. You may be using automation, but also if you are auditing and assuring AI, the end product, having AI look at AI is the fox watching the hen house. It's just not the right thing to do at that point. So always back it up to the automation, back it up to where the evidence came from, back it up to what you want it to be doing. And yes, manually, it's going to be a beast. So we have to put some automation and some AI in it. We have to be assured that the AI and the automation is giving us detail, but not the final decision until we're sure that those final decisions are always happening the way we want it to. And this is absolutely no different than putting your stuff in the cloud and expecting it to be secure automatically. It's not automagic. You have to do the work. You still have your administrators. You still have your apps that are approved, not approved. You still have audits. You still have third-party independent reviews of apps or clouds, or you have 3 pals that are in charge of auditing the cloud service provider. This is going to be needed and wanted, whether it's already in place and being enforced in every country or not, on the AI provider, on the application that's building AI in. It needs to be in their audit. So if somebody comes to tell you they're using AI to do XYZ and they used to be audited, whether that was regulatory, ISO, NIST, FedRAMP, CMMC, whatever, you can say, did you now include your AI controls in that audit process? Or how are you doing your auditing of AI to ensure that all pieces of the automation are working as designed and they're not getting bad data? So I think we're at the very beginning of that, Margaret. I applaud you for giving it a shot and knowing that manual won't do it. But knowing that somebody's manual processes probably got us to the next level of automation. Someone's innovation is going to get us to the next level, but they're not all aligned easily yet.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say. I really mean that. It's interesting though your comments though about AI, reviewing AI, because that was a comment we had in our early stages and we thought about this a lot. And we came to the view that we're not reviewing AI, truthfully, because we're reviewing the organizations that create AI. Actually, I'm not sure that it is. Yes, of course, you could review the performance of an AI, but the truth is, at best, it's a sample of a behavior of an AI system.
For sure.
Realistically, if you really want to get close to understanding something, you've got to understand the method by which it was developed, the design decisions that were made in developing it, the trade-offs that were made, and the logic behind that. Now, I've had people say to me, well, why don't you just review the source code? We thought about that as well. Well, unfortunately, source code in many cases isn't commented. So even if you could go right down into all the code, it still doesn't tell you why somebody did something the way they did. So yeah, to audit an AI system, it's not really the system. You're auditing the organization that created it and how they created it and the reasons they used in each step.
You're
Hoping
right.
that somewhere somebody wrote it down. Oh, please God, please somebody wrote it down somewhere.
Yep.
I want to let you guys know we've got 6 minutes to go, so let's start wrapping up. And I guess that goes with you, Sarah Lynn, getting the last word in.
Well, I just want to say that for anybody who is a security professional, a legal professional, or wanting to do assurance in your own environment or on someone else's, you have 10 years worth of work ahead of you. You definitely have 10 years worth of work ahead of you. And so keep an open mind, collaborate with others that are interested in this topic of assuring good data and assuring efficiency and ROI, but assuring that the data stays secure and good and private and confidential where it should, and creating the world that Margaret talked about, where we can analyze the actual AI and the decisions that were made to make the AI. It's like analyzing Einstein's brain, I'm sure. We're going to have to analyze the thought process a bit of the developer. But I just want everyone to feel like I feel like there's 10 years worth of work here, at least.
I think that's very realistic, unfortunately. And AI is not going to stop while we're doing all of this, although I think it may be reaching its own self-limiting capabilities in terms of what it can and can't do. Now, there are people who will disagree with me about that, but
Agree. Nope, I agree. Transformer architecture is drastically limited, and it is only scratching the surface of what's next for neuroscience. And I am well connected to this end of it. And I applaud your perspective on that, because you can't just keep scaling this and expect magic AGI to happen. But wrong. It's missing so many parts of the brain that aren't even included. So, let's get that simulated limbic system. Let's get episodic memory. Let's get state awareness. There's a lot to do, but I've been working on it and I have seen results. I'm excited for what's next. And so are a lot of other people out there who are developing it on large. I'm glad.
well, thank you. Sarah, you get the last word.
Well, I think I gave you my last word, 10 years worth of work, at least. I feel very confident that we're in a space where we have a lot of work to do, and anything that we're doing today is just a step 1 or 2 of what's going to come. And using those people on your staff that think differently than you were trained to think might be a place to go, whether you're comfortable or not.
That's great. Well, thank you all. And we've had a great audience today too. And it's been a really good discussion. So thank you so much, Sarah, for coming and sharing all of your experience with us. and to Dan and Kathy and Margaret for bringing in your experience. Dan, you're clapping, you're not raising your hand. So with that, I think we're going to close out the meeting. There's another meeting coming, and David's come on, which means
Will there be a forged? Will there be a forged the day after Thanksgiving, Carolyn?
yes, there's going to be a forge the day after Thanksgiving it's a meeting for women, and we have a great time in there. We have a wonderful format that we've stolen from Foundry, but it works very well. So you're all invited to come, and the women are invited to come and check it out.
Cool.
There are also Foundry for men, which is the pretty
That's
much the same
Lighthouse.
concept. And what happens in Forge stays in Forge. That's the important thing. Okay, well, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great holiday. Thanks, Sarah. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for your
much,
talk, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting this together. Y'all have a good Thanksgiving. Be
Okay.
safe.
Bye.
Bye
Happy
now.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Here we go.